Hi, Joe Glavin with City Floor Supply. Welcome to our warehouse. I am joined by Chris Sullivan. Chris was in a former life a gym floor contractor. So as you can see, what we're going to talk about today, he has a lot of expertise with that, and we're going to draw on that to help us explain this system, which is what? It's the game line tape machine. So the game line tape machine is exactly what it sounds like. It lays tape down for basketball courts and all of the lines that can go on a multi-purpose court, high school basketball, NCAA, and professional basketball. A lot of people use them. They roll the tape down tight and allow the paint to perform the way it's supposed to with nice, crisp, sharp edges. And it's a fairly complex piece of equipment. So it doesn't look like it. It looks very simple, but there are a lot of ins and outs with it that we're going to discuss. So to begin with, this game line tape machine comes with a pole kit, which is essentially for the 6-foot jump circle, top of the key, and that's about it, right?
That's it for that?
Yeah. So we'll go over all these parts, and then there's an accessory that's available with this unit, and that would be a telescopic kit, which again we will go over how it's used, and we're actually going to do a layout here too. So, and then we also have essentially the base pivot unit for this to allow us to swing the arcs.
And we're going to go over where all these mount and where they sit per the floor layout.
Right. With the game line tape machine, obviously we need a place to hold our tape. Essentially I have 1 inch, well, 0.94 rolls here, and they slide on, and these are the holders for the tape. So, you know, the cores are typically standard and tape slides on. So we have a pointer, and a lot of guys will use that if they are going to run the baseline and the sideline with a string line. And they just eyeball that string line, keep that pointer on the string line or a laser line, and run the tape. Any other?
No,
pretty much that's.
There's also some things we're going to go over later on in the video in the layout to kind of show how to make things easier on you as the contractor.
Right.
But if you're going to follow a string line or a laser line, this is the tool to do so with here. As you can see the point on the top. We'll
and
go
it's,
over other
I mean,
stuff.
this whole unit is machined aluminum and really heavy duty, well built. I'd say it weighs about 20 pounds. You need that. You need these neoprene wheels in order to get tight seals on the tape. We have a threaded space back here that allows us to store our pivot bearing, which is going to go into our pivot table there, and also a spot that's threaded to screw into our collar for our circle for the poles. So the unit comes with 3 2-foot poles. We are able to connect these poles together, and then I'll just leave them assembled. Let's see here. And then we have a quick connect that puts this pole assembly
Right into the side here.
right.
Pivot bearing, which is in your pivot table. That anchors into there, screws in. That allows you to create the circle.
And again, we'll do a full demonstration of this, actually laying out tape. But just wanted you to see that The components, everything that construction-wise on this unit is really well built. Machined aluminum pieces, not to bend, not to break, you know, in and out of the van, which, you know, really, really nice features. All of the threads are interchangeable, so everything works in conjunction with one another. This is our holder for the 3-point extension poles. And we have a support system, because as you get out to 19 feet or 19.5, we need something to hold the system in the middle so it doesn't flex, so we keep a true arc. So, you know, again, really well thought out. Comes with a couple tack nails so that we can tack into the floor. Now, obviously, today we're working on a concrete floor. We won't be doing that. So we're going to actually use some double-sided tape and probably somebody holding it just for demonstration purposes.
So on the newer models now, they've really made everything simple. And what Joe was saying, everything is really well thought out. Some of the older models used to have tape guides that had to screw into a flat piece here. Now they make all these interchangeable. Some people like to use 1-inch tape. Some people like to use 1.5, 2-inch. It's just a matter of what you're comfortable with. How do we change it out? Currently, we're set up for 1-inch tape. It's a preference of mine, it always has been. We always use 1-inch tape. But if for whatever reason, layout calls for change of tape, or again, contractor doesn't want to be as accurate with his roller, simple as unscrewing these 2 bolts here, pulling out the tape guides for 2-inch. The adjustment here is simple as unscrewing these little screws here. Sliding the current ones off, and again, everything's nicely built in here. You can slide these right back in so they're not lost or left on a job site. Screwing these bolts back on so they're nice and snug in there. And then it's a matter of putting your 2-inch tape on. So, 2-inch side facing in, get it to about where you think 2 inches is, which is going to be about there. I always like to, you can utilize this back here, but for me, I'm a tape measure guy, so I always like to double check with a tape measure. So we're set for 2 inches with 2-inch tape on each side. And we're gonna screw those in tight.
And another neat feature on these shafts that the collars, the guides are going over right now, that Chris is screwing the set screws into, they look like threads, and they're actually spaced so that when you put the set screw in and locks in the tape, they're predetermined so that when you hit close to 2 inches, you're at 2 inches. It's a nice little feature to, again, save you time and get you moving.
Mm-hmm. So now we're going to go about sliding the tape on. Again, Joe had mentioned earlier, adhesive side, obviously you want toward the floor, so when you're actually sliding them on, adhesive side is going to be facing up toward you. So, adhesive side facing up, slid onto the top guide, slid down into the 2-inch, and get it set up to where it's nice and snug in there. And then it's a matter of to the floor, and you're rolling.
Why would somebody want to use maybe 3/4 inch tape for like a tight?
Just tighter spaces. Natural breaks a lot of times happen from secondary basketball to volleyball. Sometimes that natural break, they want to see maybe a little tighter, a little thinner. We always used 1-inch tape. We always had it set up for 1-inch tape. I don't know if a lot of gym floor guys are changing, but you do have the option. If you need to get a little wider, or if you need to get a little thinner, you can do so within your layout.
And a lot of that is according to the spec, you know, what type of lines they're calling for at the school or university. Or So
really cool feature now. We're used to have multiple parts, secondary parts that weren't built onto the machine are now simply built into the machine, so you can change them out.
And again, less the less parts that are in bags somewhere else in the van, the less likely they are to get lost. So again, we're able to store pretty much everything right on the unit so that things aren't misplaced and or lost. Again, aluminum guides, various sizes from 3/4 inch up to 2 inch. Storage ability for the larger rolls, storage ability for the pivot bearing, and collar for the 6-foot jump circle and top of the key, supports, and pivot plate. So I think what we'll discuss next is essentially the layout of, we'll just call like a state high school style gym floor lining, PIAA. And again, that can vary, but it's between high school, NCAA, and pro. There's just some nuances of distances and sizes. Not much, and certainly not enough to be going crazy here with that kind of detail. So we'll move the table out of the way, and you can see we have fabricated a hoop that isn't a regulation backboard, but it's good enough.
Good for a talking point.
Good for a talking point.